Hey, Mark.
Good afternoon.
How's it going?
I'm good, Antonio. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. I'm going to stay off camera though, because I am definitely still in my PJs because I'm working from home.
That's
But
you are
all right,
absolutely good. That's
cool, cool,
kind of
cool.
where I belong too. But I figure since I'm the one up here talking, I'll get
Presenting.
somebody. They'll get a chuckle out of my appearance, if nothing else.
I don't think your appearance is chuckleable. It's just a sweater. I think you're fine.
Okay.
Um, so how these usually go is I will give a housekeeping announcement, which is just basically we've got you all muted. If you want to have any questions, we can you can either open it up for Q&A as you're speaking, or we can have a Q&A section at the very end. Doesn't really matter to me. There's a
Okay.
Q&A function on here. It should be at the bottom of your
Yep.
screen.
Yep.
You
I
should see
see
a
it.
Q&A.
I do.
I can kind of pay attention to that, and then as you have Q&A, I can pipe up
Okay.
and be like, "Hey, such and such has a question about such and such," and if they want
Okay.
to come off mute, then I can unmute them. So I'll make sure that there's sometimes we have bots in here as well. So if we have a bot or anything, I'll block them. Um, the chat I think should be open as well. People won't be
Okay.
able to private message each other, but they should be able to put messages in the chat if they have questions as well. So that's two different ways that they can do that. I'll let them
Okay.
know that it's recorded. I'll let them know that the recording will be up within the next 2 days on the Illinois Workforce Academy and on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. I just basically hand it off to
So
you. Is there? Yeah,
will I be able to share my PowerPoint on here?
you should. Do
Uh,
you want to go ahead and check that?
yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Yep. You seeing it?
Yep. Yes. It's
Cool.
not in presentation mode yet, but
Okay. No, that's
it
fine.
looks good.
Yep. I just want to make
Cool,
sure I
cool.
get on there and I just want to make sure that was okay with you. But yeah, we can, I'm just cycling through. There we go.
Yeah. No, it looks good.
All right. Cool. 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 So this is just a generalized because I thought about kind of what we talked and I thought I'll let kind of the audience maybe dictate with the Q&A what
Mm-hmm.
they want to know about very specifically.
Hmm.
Uh, and if we want to get into the weeds about how specific AT works, we can do that. I'll kind of just go through the generalities. I'll hit on the pieces that I specialize in, for lack of a better phrase. Um, but we definitely want to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered, and that there's anything I can address, we will do so. So I like to try to not bore people to death as best as I can.
Yeah, no, I think people appreciate not being bored, but I think this is going to be a really good presentation. We're all very excited about it. And the WIO committee that was the one that wanted to put this on is very, very excited about it. So
Okay. All right. Well, I hope I don't let them down, so I'll do my best.
yeah, turnout is really unpredictable. I wouldn't take it personally if not a lot of people show up. But I don't know. Sometimes these have like 50 to 100 people on them. Sometimes they'll have like 20. Sometimes they'll have five. I have no idea. We can never, but
Predict.
people
Yeah.
do watch it afterwards.
And
So
that's
just
absolutely fine. And just so you know, I did, I almost forgot, but I did finally I sent this PowerPoint to you via SharePoint. I don't know if you had a chance to look. Um,
I
so,
have not. I think
and, and that's
maybe
okay.
it's
I just sent it like probably 10 minutes ago, if that.
okay. I
And
don't
I
think
can
I have
always
it in my
resend it if for
inbox.
some reason you don't have it. And my point in that is just feel free to share. I want you to be able to share this PowerPoint because sometimes it's just a nice, it's kind of got all of our information and has a basic summary of what all of our programs are about. So,
Yeah, usually when we upload them to the Illinois Workforce Academy, we'll have a PDF version, which isn't as accessible as the normal PowerPoint version, but it's the only way that we can get it to upload.
no, that's fine.
But we'll have a PDF version of the slides
Okay.
as a link on our website.
Perfect.
So
Perfect. Yeah. And I just want to
yeah,
make sure, we are okay with you sharing with that with whomever because we want the
awesome.
information to be out there. So, yeah, no, sounds good. Looks like we got a few minutes, so I'm gonna go grab a drink and use the restroom
Yeah,
real quick, and I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
sounds good. All right.
Hey, Antonio.
What's up?
Sorry. I just got a message that said my it failed to send. It said it was too big, which is really odd because that's what SharePoint is for. So I'm I apologize. I'll try again when I get a chance. So I'm not sure what happened there.
I mean, if you want to, another solution would be if you can save it as a PDF and then send it to me as a PDF. That's what I'm going to have to do anyway, so it'll
Okay.
make the file a lot lighter.
Yeah, it will. I'm just surprised it did that. I'm really
That is
surprised.
weird on SharePoint, though.
Yeah, yeah, because I know I've shared this exact PowerPoint before for a presentation. So, but no,
No
I'll
idea.
get on it. I will absolutely do that. Probably right when I get off here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and turn on captions, and I think if you're ready, we can go ahead and let people in.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Antonio Gomez. I work for the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support based out of Illinois State. Oh, actually, people are joining. Give me a second. I'll let people plateau a little bit and then I'll say that again. All right. Looks like we've got everybody in here. My name is Antonio Gomez. Welcome, everybody. I'm from the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support based out of Illinois State University. I will be your moderator and technical support for this Workforce Wednesday webinar. We're happy to have all of you. Please hold all questions until the Q&A portion of the webinar. We may have a few Q&A sections throughout the webinar. We'll just kind of see how everybody's feeling. But if you would like to post a question, you can either put it in the chat or you have a Q&A function down at the bottom scroll of your screen. So feel free to use either of those. I'll be moderating those and making sure that we address all the questions that we can. This webinar also offers closed captioning. Feel free to turn that on whenever you like. We'll also be recording this webinar because we'd like as many people to view it as possible. We will put it on our Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, or ICSPS, YouTube channel. We will also have it on the Illinois Workforce Academy within about 48 hours. So we will have this and we will have the slides available for you guys. Happy to have you all here. If you don't have any questions, I think we can go ahead and get started.
All right. You want me to take over, Antonio?
Yep.
All righty. Well, first of all, thanks so much for inviting me to do this. It's always an honor to get to speak about what I do or what we do here at the Illinois Assistive Technology Program, which is quite a mouthful. But as you can see from the ICSPS, we all have a lot of acronyms. And in this field, you got to get used to knowing your acronym. So hopefully, most of you have heard of us. If not, you will after today, and hopefully you'll have at least, if nothing else, you're going to come out of this presentation knowing who we are and have a general idea of what we do and hopefully what we can offer for people you serve. The customers that we serve are throughout the state of Illinois through a variety of programs, which I'll be running through here in just a bit. My goal is not to bore you all to death. I will, I have a PowerPoint, but what I'm not going to do is just read it to you and then go next slide. So, like Antonio said, we can, do a Q&A, maybe even part way through, just because I want to make sure everybody, feels comfortable with what I'm saying and isn't, just left in the dark. Like, what is this man talking about? All right. So I am going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint. Let's make it look prettier than that. There we go. All right, so hopefully you can see my big IATP and that purple red swoosh thingy.
Yep. It looks
Okay.
perfect.
All right, good deal. All right, so who are we? We're the Illinois Assistive Technology Program. IATP is my daughters when they were little, when I first started working for them, as they pointed out, and this might help you remember. They just thought it was the funniest thing because it sounded like I ate TP. So, Dad eats toilet paper was the joke I got quite a bit. So if it helps you remember who we are, then so be it. IATP. You can see on there, we promote the availability of assistive technology devices and services for people with disabilities and other health conditions. Person-centered, family service provider, state agencies. We'll get into a little bit what our contracts and grants and who we work with and how we serve the customers that they work with. And again, you guys will have access to this PowerPoint/PDF within the next day or two, I think Antonio said. So I'm not going to bore you by reading all of these. Some of these are very kind of generic. When we get into the AT piece and the very specific programs, I'm going to spend more time on that. So these are the AT activities, though, that, sorry. There we go. These are the AT activities that we do provide. Well, these are some of them. These are kind of the generalized what we do, and I'll get more into the specific programs. So AT demo, there's four core activities that all states must adhere to, according to the AT Act, and that's demonstration, loan, reuse, and then state financing activities, which about six of our programs fall under that state financing activity. So we've got the core covered and then some. Um, Training and technical assistance, somewhat similar. Training is where I'm showing you how to use something. Technical assistance is where generally I'm either setting it up or it's broken and we need to help you. Then we have information and assistance, IEP and AT support. So that IEP is kind of thrown in there, doesn't seem to fit, but we do have a liaison that works with schools and families for those IEP and 504 kids. Sometimes they're in due process. So that's actually a really nice service we provide. And then public awareness outreach, that's pretty obvious. Kind of what I'm doing here today, letting you know who we are and what we're about. Um, so these are getting a little bit more into the specifics. We do contract with the State Board of Education. We provide AT and AAC evaluations. So how this works is our device loan program is actually funded through the State Board of Education. And what we saw years ago is that people were borrowing devices. And again, I'll get into the details of these programs and answer questions down the road. But how this works is essentially schools were borrowing devices from us to try with students, whether it be AAC, which is where we have a device that communicates for a student who is nonverbal, or it could be a laptop or an iPad or you name it. And unfortunately, a lot of times, well-meaning borrowers would get these devices, but not really know how to use them or how to implement them or how to train people on them. So they really weren't getting the maximum benefit of these loans. So in addition to the loan program, we were able to secure some funding to provide evaluation. So now the school, through a referral process, will make a referral for us to come out and do a real-time one-to-one assessment with that student. And we divide those into AAC, which is kind of its own beast. AAC is a little different than virtually all other AT in that it is covered by Medicaid and or insurance. And that's a whole nother game, making sure that you cross all your T's and dot all your I's to get approval. Obviously, some DME equipment and stuff can be approved as well, but when it comes to a lot of the higher tech items, computers and whatnot, unfortunately, those are not. So AAC, we have a team of, I think, 7, maybe 8 SLPs now, and that is their sole job. They do AAC evaluations. We work with vendors to make sure that people are getting the right training, that it's a proper fit, a lot of feature matching. You'll hear that phrase a lot in the AT world, which is essentially what does this student need to do and what's the tool they're going to need to do it. So we follow the SET protocol. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but it's something that Joy Zabala, who is a titan in the AT field, she passed a few years ago, developed. And it's essentially student, environment, task, technology, SETT. And so the first and foremost is who is this student? What are they about? Not only what is the disability that is challenging them, but also what are their interests? What are their hobbies? What are their strengths? What environment are we trying to conduct this in? Obviously, it's in the school, but what's that classroom look like? Or maybe they're homeschooled. Task is simply, we're in ninth grade. We need to keep up with our reading assignments. We need to write papers, maybe we're in band and we're learning to play an instrument. And then the last piece is that technology. What technology, if any, low or high tech, is going to help that student accomplish that goal? We move on to the AT and home modification evaluations for voc rehab and home services. This is a contract we have with Department of Human Services. So yours truly actually directs this program. I previously directed the state board program, so I have experience with both. And it's the same principle, a lot of these individuals, these are going to be adults. However, you can actually get a case at 14. I'll get into the details a little bit, but the general idea is similar. And this is we go into we meet with an individual. What are they going to need to gain employment, maintain employment, or go to school in an effort to one day have become employed? So again, it's kind of just what's the right tool for the job, right? So those two are very similar. Um, WIPA, which is a work incentives planning and assistance, I really like this. It's completely different. It doesn't really have anything to do with AT. It was going to actually go away about 15 years ago, and Willie, my boss, our CEO, saw the value in it because so many of our customers are on fixed incomes, receiving benefits. And I would say 90% of the people I've worked with, they want to work. I come from a place where I really believe humans, people in general, want to contribute. Most of us have an innate need to be needed, right? So the fear is always, well, if I make too much money, I'll lose my benefits. I remember years ago I worked at Spark, and a lot of my clientele, we had to do these. I don't know if you guys are familiar. We'd have to do these massive spend downs because a lot of my guys were really good about saving money, but then they'd have too much money in the bank, so we'd have to go buy things just so they wouldn't lose their Medicaid, for instance. So what WIPA does is they know all the rules, they work with Social Security, and they're able to sit down with people and say, okay, you can work X amount of hours, making X amount of money, and this is how it will or will not affect your benefits. So it's a very valuable tool. And I really do encourage you, if you have people in your lives that might benefit from that, please contact us and we can get you set up. Illinois Care Connections, ICC. This is a contract we have with Department of Aging. This originally came during COVID. It was the Care Connections, which some of you are probably familiar with. And originally it was just to get tablets, iPads, and some Androids out to seniors because we had, and we still have, unfortunately, there's so many seniors that are really isolated and unable to communicate with family or friends or whom or doctors or you name it. And so what it did is it allowed us, and then when COVID hit, obviously we were all further isolated, and these tablets kind of allowed them to connect with the world in general. To say that that was a massive undertaking is a understatement. It but it was very successful. We got a lot of positive feedback, even from the Fed side. Some people recognize what we were doing here in Illinois. And so that program has been established even after COVID. And now we've even increased what we can provide. So we can do low vision equipment and devices. We can do some DME stuff. So the you have to be over 60. And then there's folks that they're divided into two categories. And this isn't my program, so I forgive me if I get some of the detail or the acronyms wrong, but it's CCB and non-CCB. So it's essentially if you are on benefits, Social Security, you're considered CCB and they get priority, but non-CCB still can receive devices and equipment. And it's really more about the funding piece. There's a lesser amount of money for folks that maybe are a little more well off and don't rely on those benefits. It doesn't mean they can't receive items. They're just somewhat more limited. Um, and Kadada, honestly, that's just keep hitting that. That's just the Data Act that we work with the federal. Actually, our programmer created what we use has actually been modeled and used nationally, which is kind of cool. So it tracks, devices and customers and all that good stuff nationwide. Definition of assistive technology. I'll tell you what, there's two of them I think I have on here. Yep. I'll be honest with you, the one I like to use is sort of the lay version, and I really like this, but technology for people without disabilities makes things simpler and easier. Technology for people with disabilities can make things possible. And that's really the big difference. And so much of the origin of our technology today either was developed originally to try to help people with disabilities, and later it was like, wow, this is really helpful for all of us, or vice versa. I was like, hey, look at this cool tool that we have. For instance, some of the VR stuff, even like the Apple, oh my gosh, the Provision. Can't remember the name, but with the headset and you can do things hands free. That's actually a piece of AT that can be useful for people that it really wasn't created for that. But when you can kind of fit those pieces, it's pretty cool. So, but these are the kind of official generic ones that we use. Um, the demo center, and I'm going to kind of go piece by piece into our programs. Demo center is huge, and just so everybody knows, it looks like we have roughly 20 people, 18 people on here. I don't know where you're all located. We are located in Springfield, 701 North Wall Street. You have a open invitation from yours truly to come visit us. If you give us a call, we can have somebody here to sort of give you the nickel tour, but you're always welcome to just walk in. The demo floor is amazing. It really is. I use it all the time just to go kind of look and see what's out there because it's hard to keep up with even when it's your job, as it is for me. But we have an adapter. You kind of see in these pictures here, that's a low vision room that we have. Angie's working with a customer. We have an adaptive bathroom. We have a smart bedroom. We have a smart kitchen. Down here, this little girl's in our sensory room where we have a lot of cool stuff. And it's divided into sections. So we have an AAC section, a low vision section, an ADL section, plus a variety of literature and resources that can point you in the direction of where to get these items. And keep in mind, this is another point. If you walk away with nothing else, just know this: we sell nothing. We can't sell anything. We don't want to sell anything. And it really makes us very objective in our approach. We have no horse in the race, so to speak, right? We're not the reason we have this demo center is so people can come in and look at things, get their hands on things. So many of these items are expensive, ridiculously so in some cases. And the dirtiest word in our business is equipment abandonment, right? So we want to make sure that, I can't tell you how many times I'd show up at a school maybe to do an eval and they say, oh, the tech guy's here. And I get sort of some I don't want to say some pushback, but a little bit like, oh, he's just here to throw tech at things. And that's the last thing we want to do. First rule of thumbs, do no harm. There are times I've done an eval, and the eval was, you know what, there's no tech that's really going to help this student at this time, but we're going to keep looking and learning and see what new comes out. So we don't want to just throw devices at people, and then you end up with some really expensive paperweights around the house. So plus, if you have one of us around, we can answer questions about how things are used. And I'll be honest with you, we try to be very open to all vendors. Like I said, we don't sell anything. We don't take anything from vendors. Even when we get they send us swag just for, having us come. Willie won't even let us keep an umbrella with somebody's logo on it. It all goes into our giveaways at some show or something. So, um, not all things are created equal. So believe me, I'm not going to recommend an item, for instance, if I know it doesn't work as well as another item, just to be fair. We want to make sure that we're pointing people in directions of things that are useful. If you've ever been to some of these conferences or expo centers, they're great. I love them. We're going to go to RESNA as a team up in May, up in Chicago. Can't wait. But that being said, you got to remember those vendors are there to sell items. And so everything at a booth or in a presentation sounds wonderful. We're very much about does it work in real time in real life. So it's a big part of what we do. It doesn't make vendors happy all the time, but that's not really my concern. Uh, Categories of AT, we hit them all. You can see them all on here. Vision, I'll be honest with you on the VR side. So this is Voc Rehab. Probably 75 to 80% is Bureau of Blind Services. So it's blind or low vision. We do a lot of screen readers and braille devices and things like that. But we also do a lot of physical access. So our environmental adaptation, mobility, seating, and positioning was something we didn't hit as much, but my goodness, we've grown so much in the last 4 or 5 years. We've almost tripled in size. I think we have 8 to 10 OTs or OTAs, and actually 2 PTAs now too on staff. In fact, 2 of my ATS evaluators are both PTAs, which has been just awesome. One of the things that we've really set our sights on here in the last few years is to have a very holistic approach. There's so many times me as an AT professional, I could go into the home and I can, with the risk of tooting my own horn, I could come in and figure out your computer access really well, but I can see maybe that you're having some issues with your wheelchair or, you're struggling in the kitchen. I could offer some advice, maybe point you in the right direction, but that's really not my area of expertise. And bringing in OTs, PTs, in other ways, our SLPs, we have several engineers on staff as well. We'll talk about our 3D printing program here in a little bit. It's allowed us to address those other areas. And with the increase in funding in these other programs, we can actually then provide items. So it's been really nice. So we can make cross referrals even within our own agency to help people. And that's something for years when I did this, I can remember coming away from certain evaluations just thinking, man, I wish I could do more. And now we can. The other area that we really never hit on very much at all, and it's still kind of, we do to an extent. It's hard to hit it from there's not really a program in place, but more and more recreation, sports and leisure, especially gaming. And I know one of our engineers downstairs is really big on trying to figure out what the latest and greatest is. So many of the students I worked with, gosh, one young man in the Decatur area, been in a really bad accident at 16. Left him with quadriplegia. He had some limited use of one hand, but he was a big gamer, and that was a big thing for him. And we did kind of rig something up where he could play games, and he was a hoot because he would, you can get online and chat with the other gamers, and he would always make it a point to let them know they just got beat by by somebody who was a quad. He got a kick out of that. So. Um, but that's really improved, and that can be fishing. Gosh, there's even some hunting devices out there where they got like modulators, and you can put them on a chair, and so it's pretty cool stuff. Anything that we can be adapted and can allow somebody to get back into the activities they were used to doing, or maybe are interested in exploring. We're really excited about trying to be able to do that more. So. Vision devices, like I said, this is kind of the area that I and my team thrive in. I'm sorry, I'm expecting a text from my daughter, and that's the only reason I'm looking at my phone. Um, so what you see here, CCTV, those are big ones. If you don't know what that is, it's essentially there's a camera on the just above that tray that points down and it magnifies up on the screen. Very simple. It's a closed caption camera or a closed circuit camera. Closed circuit camera. Now, those come in a variety of models. So some of those will actually, like you see this one on the right, this has print. That will not only magnify for you with a variety of color and brightness options, but it will also read to you. So that uses what we call OCR, optical character recognition, and that's going to read that print in addition to magnifying for you. Um, One of the big struggles we have is for folks who are losing their vision, depending on what that diagnosis is. So let's say it's macular degeneration. Um, it's getting worse. And it comes in waves, right? Um, a lot of folks, the general rule of thumb is that if I'm using a computer and I need it blown up more than 5x, we're going to start nudging you over into a screen reader. Because at that point, you're making something so big that you're really losing your orientation on the screen. And it's very hard to do things in a proficient manner. That being said, it can be very difficult and very scary for people to admit, oh my goodness, I'm losing my vision entirely. I always try to put myself in their shoes and think, where would I be? I know I'd be hanging on by every fingernail to try to hang on to what vision I have. So we always try to be cognizant of that and just gently get them over there. Like, hey, if we work on these typing skills, we're going to be able to use the screen reader more. Um, but you'll notice we have the low tech, just it looks like just probably a 2.5 circle magnifier from Optelec with an LED light. And then over here you see a Ruby 7. That's a portable magnifier. This little piece on the top actually does distance viewing as well. This part over on the right um, actually has a scanning, so you can take a picture of something and then just scan it smoothly back and forth, which is nice. Again, none of these items are cheap. I can tell you that's a Clearview, that is a Topaz. Those are both over 3 grand. Even this little Optelec handheld's probably 15, 20 bucks. And this Ruby 7, I think they're going for about 8 or 900 right now. So can't stress the importance enough of making sure that it's a proper fit for an individual and testing it before we buy. Developmental and sensory, this is kind of the room I was telling you about. I won't go into this a great deal. A lot of this, we have a lot of students that we see on the spectrum and that come in. So there's a lot of weighted blankets and some light things and just anything that can help with engagement. Anybody who's worked with, younger students, finding that engagement activity, finding that piece where you can reach that student is so big. And so just having access to a variety of things, whether it's tactile from a sensory standpoint, or they don't have vision and we got to start looking at tactile and getting them started on Braille and things like that. I will say you'll see, I don't know if you guys can see that bubble. Well, I'm sure you can. That bubbler, that tall bubbler, that's a really cool item. A lot of us like to take our breaks and just turn that on for about 15 minutes and chill. So it's not a bad little room even for the workers. We used to have a ball pit as well, which was nice. COVID kind of put the kibosh on that, and we decided not to put it back up. Device loan. So this is a big one. And to me, it's one of our most important programs because I talked about demo where you can come in and see things, but you're only here for X amount of time. This allows you for free, there's no cost, to borrow an item. You'll see an AAC device here, and I can tell you that that is a Tobii Dynavox, a little bit older, but that's probably that's at least 5, 6 grand. Now you get into eye gaze, you're talking 12 to 15 grand. So these are high dollar items. That's a dedicated device. There are apps that will to some degree replicate this. So there's some nice apps that are hundreds of dollars, not thousands, but a lot of them, depending on the individual, won't serve their needs. So, but for free loan for 6 weeks, I encourage everybody to get on our website. It's www.iltech.org. And if somebody, I'll try to remember to put it in chat, but if somebody wants to put it in there for me, just so everybody, please explore our website. And you can go on to device loan. And if you don't see an item you're looking for, give us a call. I actually used to run this program too, and frequently I would say, hey, if we don't have it and we have the funding, we'll buy it so you can try it. We always want to make sure we have input from educators, from therapists, from teachers, from counselors, from individuals, from families, from everybody. So much of what I've learned has been from probably folks like you all and working with you on a daily basis and taking it back and spreading the wealth, so to speak. I do see. Oh, someone put it on there. Thank you so much, Tony. That was quick. Yeah, so please explore that, and it'll kind of give you. You'll probably do a better job than I'm doing of just kind of going through everything that we offer. And again, we encourage calls, emails, visits, you name it. So this is open to everybody in the state of Illinois. So you don't need a case with anyone. I've mentioned to use our Voc rehab services, you have to have a case with Department of Rehab. To have ISB come in, the school has to make a request. Frequently, parents want us to come in. Unfortunately, the school has to be the one inviting us. So device loan doesn't necessitate anybody making a referral or anything. You can get on there, any one of you today. You will set up an account. You don't have to put in a credit card or anything. And I always tell folks we have a little disclaimer on there that will give you the cost of the item you're borrowing that you would be responsible for should something happen. I can tell you right now, accidents happen. We've had them happen before, broken laptops, iPads, even AC devices. We have warranties. We do not make you pay for those items. Okay. It's more just a reminder. I've actually asked them to take it off of there, but just a reminder, please take care of it. The worst that we'll do, we've had a handful of people around the state, people being people. Generally, people are great about it, get it back on time, who've kind of abused this, whether they break items, and then the worst we'll do is no longer loan to you. And generally, you've got to do it a few times for us to finally say, okay, no mas. We think you're up to something here, but that's absolutely not the rule. That is the exception. Um, Using as a backup, that's probably one of the most common reasons. So, for instance, we give a lot of laptops out, but we have warranties on the laptops. If they have to send that laptop out because there's some kind of hardware issue, well, now they've got nothing. They can borrow one for us for 6 weeks for free. And by the way, that loan period can be extended if you give us a call, shoot us an email, and say, "Hey, I really need this longer. Is there any way I can get it another couple, 3 weeks?" As long as nobody else is waiting for it, which I think we'd all agree would make sense. If there's another student that really needed it, we don't want them to wait. But as long as nobody's waiting for it, we will extend those trials. Um, I will say this, the only cost that the borrower can incur or will incur is sending it back to us. We used to send slips in the box. Honestly, shipping really got ridiculous. So we ship it to you for free, but we do ask that you pay to ship it back. Now, that being said, we've had families and people are like, I really can't afford to do that. We will ship them a tag and ship it back. So just so you know, we never want somebody like, man, I really need to borrow this, but I don't think I can afford to send it back. We'll take care of it. Okay. Um, so trialing devices before you make a decision to buy, using as a backup, compatibility kind of goes into trialing devices. I think that's a little redundant. Therapists do use these a great deal. A lot of our speech therapists around the state, whether it's schools or wherever, will borrow AAC devices. They really don't need the training or the instruction. They're already schooled up on that, but they can't necessarily get their hands on these things. So by all means, look us up. And again, available to anyone in Illinois. Doesn't matter how much money you make. Doesn't matter. Really, there's nothing that we would ask you for to prove. We don't prove that you even live in the state of Illinois. Although, if if you ask it to be shipped to Minnesota, we might have some questions. Uh-oh. Device loan continued. All right. 6 weeks, I think we already got, can be shipped, picked up or shipped to borrower. And there you go. Try a device. So if you got it on our website already, you'll see that on there. Pretty simple. All right, AT reuse, another one that I really love. When I first started with IATP, this was where I cut my teeth. This again, available to anybody within the state of Illinois, no cost. So these are new or pre-owned, okay? Primarily DME stuff. So you even see our little sketches there, walkers, bath chairs, wheelchairs, but you will see magnifier. So we do low vision stuff. I know I use this if we get a customer on the DRS side, everybody can qualify for an eval on that side, but not everybody necessarily qualifies to receive devices because maybe their financial participation or they're earning too much. But as we all know, there's that part where a lot of us sit there, right? Where I know you don't get into this field to make a bunch of money, right? So a lot of us we make enough money to be comfortable and live, but there's certain items I would like to have as well. So AT reuse again doesn't look at your income level in any way, shape, or form. And if I have a customer that doesn't qualify in my program area, I can then kind of backdoor, if you will, the AT reuse. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't want to make it sound like I'm doing something shady. But that's available to anybody. So if I want to get somebody a CCTV, they won't qualify through VR. I can point them to AT reuse, and I know they have several of those. So you can keep it. This is considered a long-term loan. No, I've used these quotes quite a bit, but the reason I'm doing that is if you notice, it says recipients can keep devices for as long as needed, which can be forever. That's fine. The only thing we ask is that so a lot of DME stuff for people, maybe they just had surgery. And so they're going to need one of I always forget the name of them, the little knee scooters that we've all seen. Maybe they need that for a few weeks, or they need the bath chair or a walker or something until they heal. The only thing we would ask is if you're not going to, be using that. And frankly, most people are happy to get rid of it because it ends up just in your garage or in a corner of a room somewhere. Get it back to us so we can clean it up. We got a great big machine called a hub scrub, and it completely sanitizes all these devices. So we do a really good job of making sure these things are clean. And generally working correctly. Some of them might be used, and for instance, I get a used computer. I always tell people, hey, consider this is a used device. There's no warranty. If it goes out on you, there's really not much we can do other than seeing if we have another one for you. So just like to make sure people know that. I want to make sure I am AT reuse state financing. Okay. So remember I talked about those. Well, you know what? And this would probably be a good time, Antonio. Maybe just is there any questions? I know I've been going pretty quick, kind of running through this because I tend to babble. So I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Are
Yeah,
we pretty?
I don't see anything in the Q&A, but if anybody would like to raise their hand and I can unmute them, I'm happy to do that right now.
It's always tough with Zoom because I never know what, you know what I mean? People could be like, oh, geez, what is he talking about? But I can't really see any reactions.
Yeah,
Okay, well, you know what? If somebody, I'm just going to take that as a sign that, I've hit everything just 100% thorough. So,
I think you're good. I was actually going to ask how you sanitize things between users, and you answered that. I didn't know that a
yeah,
hub
yep.
scrub existed. That's kind of
And
cool.
yep, yep. There's a couple of those machines, and I don't even know. I think we've got two of them now, and one might not even be the hub scrub. But we used to do it by hand, Antonio. And honestly, it was kind of like,
Oh,
and frankly, it was a lot of work. But yeah,
yeah.
you can throw a bunch of walkers in this. Now, obviously, if there's cloth or material or something like that, we can't use it. But for those DME items, absolutely.
Mhm.
So
That's
yeah,
good. Yeah,
yep.
I've always been curious about that. That's good to know.
Now you know. Yeah. So state finance. Remember we talked about those four core pieces. So it's demo, reuse, device loan, and then state financing activities. Well, here are several state financing activities we're going to talk about, and these are all new. When I say new, couple years, so we're still tweaking, still kind of willing to take suggestions. By the way, right? We're not offended by that. Like, hey, this might be better if you consider doing this, that, or the other. We love hearing that. If for some reason we couldn't implement it, we would let you know. And thank you for offering the suggestion. Um, so it's smart home technology, and then a tech kitchen, plan, prep, cook, and then IATP makers, which is actually what we call our 3D printing program. So I'm going to, I don't know why my space bar quit working. So here's smart home technology. We do have a smart home demonstration center. It's part of our demo center. So I think I mentioned we have a smart bedroom, a smart living room, a smart kitchen. We actually have a smart washer and dryer hooked up. Um, there is not much that can't be hooked up to a smart device, even if it's taking a regular device and hooking it up to a smart plug, right? So these evaluations are only available currently, and I do stress currently because I don't know if this will be the case for all time or not, but currently for DRS customers. So I mentioned like our Voc rehab program and also our home services, which I didn't really hit on too much, but I will later. These are referrals that come from Department of Rehab Services, and all of their customers, regardless of financial participation, whatever, that doesn't come into play, qualify for smart home as long as the counselor agrees. So, and that basically entails, hey, what are your needs? So this is going to be a lot of your daily living stuff. So, um, done a lot of Ring doorbell cameras with remote access on your phone. Smart locks. Smart locks are a big one, especially for our power chair users. Smart thermostats. A lot of light bulbs. We'll do TVs. Again, this is where it was kind of tough because setting the parameters on what we can and can't provide, we're still sort of figuring out. Um, Most people are very gracious and are, hey, this is what I need to do if you can help me, whether it's cooking or just, turning on the lights in their home or, yeah, letting someone in the front door. You know, that's that's very understandable and easy to assess and like that's a need, we can take care of it. There's always those other folks like, hey, what all can I get? You know what I mean? So we don't want to make it sound like, oh, a big piece of this. And I'm gonna make sure that the next slide, there's our smart kitchen. Very cool. There's our smart living room. That's a smart fridge. um but I want to make sure, there we go. Oh, tech kitchen. All right, I'm sorry, I was just checking my slides. um we want to make sure we're providing stuff for people that they really need. And it's not like, hey, that'd be really cool to have. So kind of wrangling that in. has been interesting for sure. But you know what? We're always willing. I mean, we done. I can't tell you how many times it's like. Well, recently, for instance, we were doing smart heaters and there was a recall. So unfortunately, the brand we were using, there was a fire hazard, so we had to collect all those. And we're actually just not going to do smart heaters anymore just because of that. But other than that item, we're willing to kind of at least talk about and listen to just about anything. And if it fits within our funding and kind of the guidelines that we set for the program, we're happy to do it. I think we did smart blinds for somebody, and I can't remember the justification, but there were work from home, and it really was a legitimate need. So we went ahead and did it. So um, smart home is difficult to maintain. So that's been the one area we've come run into. And it's not that our guys who are really well schooled in smart home technology aren't willing to run and help folks, but we do the entire state of Illinois. We currently have 3 people that essentially run that program. So we can't necessarily run to Waukegan from Springfield, tonight to go, make sure you get connected. So the thing we know, after we all know with Bluetooth or even on Wi-Fi, things get connected and then things jump off for whatever reason. Sometimes it's user error, sometimes it just happens. So that technical assistance can be a little bit daunting from time to time, but we've actually done a good job of trying to incorporate people that might be in the area. So, for instance, I'll be in Chicago a couple weeks from now. I'll check with Steve and James who do our smart home and be like, hey, do you have anybody up there? I might be able to assist. So that's the one area that's been a little bit difficult. And, it's like any program. As you go, you're going to find these little wrinkles that happen. But by and large, it's been very successful. And even when people maybe have problems with a specific item or something, they recognize like, well, now it goes back to like it was. We're not doing any harm to their existing setup. Tech Kitchen, same program in terms of who qualifies. So the difference here is we do both classes. So that is another kitchen that we have in our building, and that is actually um, I'd like you to look at that as if it's a classroom because we will actually do group and one-to-one teaching in there, and you'll see a lot of items, mixing bowls and stirrers, and some of them are just very simple low tech items, and then some are higher tech items, right? And you'll notice, like, even on the microwave up here, we have the tactile symbols for people to feel and just to know which button is what, right? So that's a very cheap, low cost way to do it. But then there's also like a smart microwave that you can control essentially with your voice. So um, the ranges vary greatly. Let's put it that way. The other piece of this, though, is that we will also go to the home. We have a team of OTs, and we actually have a chef on staff, Elizabeth Warren. And I tell you what, having a chef on staff, kind of cool. So I always tell her I'm right here to eat any mistakes you might make because her mistakes are still delicious. Um, but this has been, I'll be honest with you, when we first started this, I am not a cook, I'm not a kitchen guy, and I was kind of like, well, how is this going to work? It has been phenomenally successful. So many of the people I've worked with who were blind. I remember one lady up in the Elgin area, man, great lady, just came from another country, learned a second language with no vision, with her kids in tow, to a new country she never knew, learned the language, learned a trade, is working from home on a computer. But she talked about how the kitchen was the one area she just struggled. And I remember she had scars on her forearms because she kept hitting her arm on the rack or whatever when she was pulling stuff out of the oven. And that's a simple fix. We just have uh, uh, what are the gloves I'm looking for? The name, not a heat, the pads, but just a pot holder or whatever up to your elbow as opposed to your wrist. It's just that simple. So now when she goes to reach for that rack, no more burns. So she called me and she's like, "Oh my goodness, it is so much nicer." And there's a variety of other items she wasn't even aware that existed that have allowed her to. She talked about how her girls were really happy because she's making far more dishes than she was able to before. So yeah, again, free classes does have to currently be DRS customers. Um, but keep in mind, anybody can at least kind of walk in and we can sort of show you some things without doing an official evaluation slash visit. Tech Kitchen continue, just kind of show you a couple of things they're doing there. It's a pretty cool place. Again, you probably can see it from the pictures. It's a great place to visit. All right, the makers. So this is actually we were talking about making this for just DRS customers. I think I may have misspoke because I believe this is still open to the general public. So I think anybody can get on here and make a request. This is one area that's kind of wide open. So this is our 3D printing program. If you do visit us, again, it's off of our demo floor, and we have, gosh, I think we have 7 or 8 3D printers now, including a giant laser engraver. I'll be honest with you, I know just enough to be dangerous in this area, but they can really, and now that we have engineers on board, they've gotten really creative. A lot of what we make currently are fairly simple items. Now you'll see right there, that's just a holder for that syringe. It's funny because that was for my boss's daughter who had a G tube. My daughter had a G tube for years, and I remember when I'd have to feed her, you have to put the line in, and then you'd have to hold, and you'd have to pour, and it could be kind of a pain. And if young kids, she was always squirming and wiggly and impatient, so it was always kind of a pain. This literally is something, there wasn't another item out there that we created, so you could just set the syringe in there, and now you got your hands free. So, very simple. Most of what we've done so far are things like this: key fobs, bag holders, um, knob turners. I'm trying to think. Seatbelt. Just basically a little stick with a little wedge on the end, so that somebody with some physical disabilities, or maybe you can't use one arm or the other, can then reach and undo that seatbelt. There's also a seatbelt latch, so you can grab it and pull it across. So I really want to stress any ideas that you guys may have, like, hey, I wish somebody could make something that would do this, hit us up. Worst we're going to say is, man, we tried, or we can't, or you know what I mean? No harm, no foul. And the reason I'm pretty sure I know this is available to the general public, we don't ask for anything. Remember, I said we don't sell anything. We don't ever want money. This is the one area where if you choose to make a donation to buy the actual material, so whatever kind of filament they're using, and there's about, I don't even know how many different types of material there are, depending on what you're making. If it's a food product, you want to make sure it's, like a knife we did a rocker knife for a student one time. We actually did do a prosthetic arm that somebody could do by flexing, could get a grip by flexing their wrist, which is really cool. And that was a student I worked with in Taylorville. And he got a rocker knife too. And he was, we got video of him using those things for the first time, and it's pretty cool. It's one of those ones where it's like, it must be dusty in here. My eyes are welling up. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas, anything you guys can think of, you're like, hit us up. We'll have a conversation, and necessity is the mother of invention. So we welcome input. All right, ISB loans. I hit on this, or ISB evaluations and loans, which really where it says and loans, that is run through our device loan, which I already talked about. So I want to hit you with that. So this part, the loan to schools for 6-week trial. I will say this though, the AAC devices that we have a certain amount of them because the majority of devices we loan out are earmarked for ISB specifically, as opposed to just a general pop. Because out of all the waiting lists that we will have, AAC devices are the longest. I think we've done a pretty good job. I know at one point it was like 3 to 6 months, which was kind of ridiculous because to get approved for funding, you've got to have them done under a certain amount of time according to Medicaid or insurance. So I think we're down, last I heard, we're down to maybe a month or two, depending on the device. And that's also where if we don't have it available for loan, we work closely with the vendors, and they usually have a device that they can loan. And it's in their best interest because ultimately they're selling it. But if it works for the common good, we're fine with that. So this is AT and AAC. I know I've hit AAC pretty hard, but this is also AT, which is pretty much everything else. These are the evals I used to do for years. I love doing it. I love working with the kids and the students. Nothing's better than showing that students something that they realize in real time is going to change their lives at school. It's not always the norm, but every now and again. So, and how that works again, no cost. School invites us, although sometimes it's parent driven. So we really encourage parents when they're sitting down at their IEPs, and it's really a state law, so it's supposed to be discussed. Is an AT evaluation needed here? And the parent can always say, yes, we'd like one to be done. The school has to agree and invite us in, but then when we come in, you'll see it's ages 3 to 22 that live in Illinois. Um, this was always a little difficult for me because as I would meet with a student, see they need X, Y, Z. A big part of this too is we write reports summarizing what we did, why we did it, justifying. We're big. We teach all my new ATSs. You gonna make a recommendation? Why? I better not just see a list with items. They need this, this, and this. I want to know why and how they're going to use it, right? Unfortunately, we didn't have the ability to actually give them those things. So depending on the school and the district, they may or may not implement it. Um, it can be frustrating at times, but I also understood where schools were at, and money doesn't grow on trees, as one superintendent told me, which I said I'm aware, but the student could really benefit from this. So um, we do try to then work with families if they come to us and say, hey, school didn't provide this, that, or that. Remember, I mentioned reuse, or we can do a loan, an extended loan, if it's something that's going to happen. So we would always do our best to see if we could help if the school couldn't do what we were hoping they would. But very valuable. Most schools have been great in working with us. Um, and even if maybe they can't get that device or that item, it's on their radar, or immediately it's on their radar, and down the road maybe they can get it. And if nothing else, the family's now been informed, and a lot of those folks will then do whatever they need to do to get what their child needs. So this is that advocacy plan. I kind of touched on this earlier. Susie Woods, who did this for a year, God rest her soul. She just passed about a year ago. Was phenomenal. We're lucky to have a lady by the name of Linda Pruitt take her place. She's been great as well. And so this is a liaison. And keep this in mind. They're not necessarily there just, I think a lot of times people think, oh, they're an advocate, they're here to blast the school. And that's not Susie or Linda. They're literally, they know the law. They know about IDEA and free, appropriate, and public education. And so they know what's required and how things are supposed to be implemented. But, same with when I came in to do a eval, you don't want to come in heavy-handed. These people invited you to the school. So a lot of times I might see things that were sort of not quite right. But I'm not in there to say, hey, you're doing this, that, and the other wrong. Here's how you can do a little better, right? So generally, it's that how they work, how Linda works is just talk to the family, say, hey, these are your rights. Talk to the school. Here's what the family is coming from. Here's what they'd like to see happen, and just kind of being that go between. That's hopefully bringing a little bit of sense to the proceedings, because sometimes these things can get a little dicey. Things go into due process. I know I've had lawyers like combing through reports of mine, and I'm thinking, oh, geez, I hope I wrote that correctly. Knock on wood, I never got dinged, but yeah, it can be a little hairy. So having that liaison, having that advocate, making sure families know their rights, but also that frequently the schools would come back and say, yeah, we thought they were coming in to help fight us, and instead it was just the opposite. They were here to kind of find some medium ground there. WIPA, I think I already talked about this. I didn't realize I had a slide for it, but again, for individuals receiving SSSDI. In this, much like our VR program, you're eligible at 14. So you can get a case with DRS at 14. You can't really receive equipment yet. But one of the things when I go into schools, especially when we had a prominent disability, we have CP, blindness, something that we know isn't gonna, the prognosis is either it's gonna be stable, but we have significant challenges, or perhaps even get worse. Get a case early, even if it doesn't help you right now. That buzzword that we all hear, transition, right, is huge. And so many students coming out of high school, they're like, oh, shoot, now what do I do? Or coming out of college, oh, shoot, now what do I do? So this is a piece of that puzzle to make sure that people aren't left kind of like, oh, no, now what? Here's the care connections. I already kind of talked about it, but 60 or older with Department of Aging. This is primarily, well, this is solely community living. So this has nothing to do with work or education or any of that. Not that they couldn't work, use whatever we provide for that, but this is really just for community living, living at home. Aging in place is a term you'll hear a lot. And even though these items aren't necessarily going to provide all independence in the home, keep in mind if that customer maybe can, does have a DRS case, they can get smart home or maybe home services. So they might receive these services in conjunction with something else. The feedback that we've gotten on this particular program has been just phenomenal. So many seniors have said, "Oh my goodness, this has been amazing," and so many seniors who were technophobic, were afraid of anything tech related, other than just the simplest, easiest things. This training and a technical assistance has been big. To be able to sit with somebody, I've done some of these for them, and just say, no, this is going to be real easy. You know what? And to watch them sort of surprise themselves with their abilities. I remember sitting with a man one time, and he made a FaceTime call to his daughter, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I can't." He's like, "I never in a million years thought that my father would be FaceTiming me." So that was pretty cool. So these are kind of just the other generalities that we provide. I think I hit these two: training, presentations, tours, professional development. I'm going to hit you with questions or ask for questions now, um, but then probably circle back a little bit and talk about our voc rehab program a little bit more in depth, or any other program you'd like to hear about. And there's just my information. I want to make sure that everybody gets that. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to type that in right now, just so I don't forget. So, Antonio, I don't know if you see any
I'm not seeing
questions.
anybody
All right.
having put any questions in the chat or in the Q&A, but if anybody would like to raise their hands, I can go ahead and unmute them. This would be any questions. We've got Mark's contact info in the chat.
Yep, just put it in there. So, and I don't know. That's why it's always hard when I'm not in person because I'm not quite sure where you guys are all coming from and what types of people you serve and support and what areas you work in. The reason I was going to go a little bit more into the VR program, because like I said, that's what we do, and just what we're able to do for those folks. So just so you know, I know I said there's referral made through DRS. It comes through our website. We get a variety of information. Then we contact that customer. Now, it's kind of divided into three categories. We have what we call a level 2 evaluation, which is a full evaluation. We come in like, what is your needs to go to school, to work, to get a job, whatever it might be. And sometimes that's nothing more than, you know what, you need a computer, right? You need a computer to pretty much do just about anything, a computer and or a smartphone. Um, so we can always justify, hey, a computer with XYZ software. So if this is a low vision person, there's a software called Zoom Text that we frequently recommend. They'll get a laptop with Zoom Text so that they can, get online, fill out applications, communicate with, prospective employers or whoever it might be. Oh, looks like we have one.
We do have
Yep.
one. We've got
Yep.
two, actually. Look at that. We're
Look
going
at
to go ahead
that.
and answer
In a
both of
row.
them live.
Okay. What is the change you see company and with having so many companies sunset products like Camera Down? Oh, great question.
I'm
That's
going to read that out loud for just for people
oh
that are
yeah, I'm
watching the
sorry.
recording afterwards.
Yep.
So, great presentation. What is the change that you see coming with technology and with having so many companies sunset products like camera doorbells and smart speakers? How do you replace that technology?
And seriously, what a great question. I know that sounds like a cliche response. So the hardest part is keeping up with technology. So for instance, we will not give anything out on the VR side anyways, that's not new and still supported. And that's even like operating systems, right? So like we're rolling our laptops are Windows 11. That's always a whenever Windows changes their operating system, AT is always a little bit behind the operating system. So we never like we wait for a while. We keep 10 until we're sure that 11 is gonna sufficiently work with our AT. Um, but that's a hard one only because for what you just said. They go away, we don't have support anymore. We don't really have the resources to provide a full technical support line. You know what I mean? We don't have a line where you can call and like, hey, can I help you? What's going on? We'll do whatever we can. We never want people to not call us and ask questions. And we do, for instance, all of our laptops, we provide a platinum premium pro warranty, which means for 4 years that device is covered, and that means a tech will come to you to replace your motherboard or bezel or something like that. And that includes accidental damage. Um, but you mentioned like the doorbell, smart speakers, or even had the recall for the heaters. Um, we will, as long as the time frame permits. So in other words, if I gave you something 2 months ago and we get notice yesterday that that's going to be discontinued, we may not be able to replace that immediately, but we will certainly see what replacement, in the fairly near future we can provide that's similar to whatever that device or item did, and then we'll provide support, right? And we'll have a warranty that you can use. And if you have an item, so a lot of those standalone devices, Braille devices, for instance, usually only have a year, maybe 2 year warranty, and those are really high dollar items. And then even, I hate to say this, but a lot of companies, and I'm sure you guys know, having a warranty and then using that warranty can be two different things. Some warranties are really hard to engage, right? It drives me nuts, but we try to help people with that too. And we realize that a lot of our customers visually impaired, maybe some other disability, especially if there's a cognitive issue, we'll assist them in making sure we make the right calls and the right people. But that is a very tough thing to do. And we just, to answer Katie, is frankly, we do our best. And that's where we really encourage feedback. And we want customers to make sure they have an open line of communication with us and counselors and families and all those other folks. Uh, and Donna says, will this presentation be available on your website? It won't be on our website, but I'm going to make sure Antonio has this slide. So, I mean, the slide presentation. So I believe he's going to post it. Am I right?
Yes, it'll
Okay.
be available both on our YouTube channel at ICSPS and then at the Illinois Workforce Academy. Well, the slides won't be available on our YouTube channel, but the
Okay.
actual presentation and this recording will be available on the Illinois Workforce Academy. So that should be about like 48-hour turnaround.
Okay. And I dropped the
I
ball.
posted
I
the
tried to go ahead.
I posted the link in the chat to the
Oh,
Workforce
awesome.
Academy.
Yeah, I dropped the ball. I tried to sending this to Antonio via SharePoint. Like I think I was supposed to do a couple days ago. And I totally forgot. I tried to do it right before this, and for whatever reason, they said it was too big in SharePoint, which is really unusual to me. So, but I'm going to make sure Antonio gets this because I want to, that's why I use this very generic PowerPoint because it does sum up kind of everything we do, and hopefully answer most questions that pop into people's heads. Um, but kind of speaking to what you're saying, Katie, on the VR side, like making sure we stay up with the latest technology. And the other piece of that too is I don't know if you've all ever heard of the OrCam. It was just a big item for years, and I think it was on Dr. Phil or something. And man, if we got one call, we got 100. I want an OrCam because they were so dishonest with their advertising, and I don't feel shy saying that because it literally was like sight for the blind, and it just really was a misnomer. It's not a bad product. It does some good things, but it's very expensive and it's not nearly what it advertised. And the battery life is awful. Uh, so, and usually the battery would die right after the warranty wear out. Imagine that. Um, so the problem with that is that a lot of people sort of hear about things, want it, and then frequently we have to be the kind of bearer of bad news, like, hey, as a professional, I don't feel comfortable recommending this. That this isn't a wish list. This isn't like, hey, what do you need? Now that being said, if I talk to a customer and they're certified grade 2 Braille, they've been using Braille I just talked to a guy. He's been using Braille. Literally, he started learning when he was 3. His family did a great job because they knew, hey, this is his life. So we're going to make sure he gets everything he needs. Um, he's somebody I'm very comfortable when he says, yeah, this type of device works for me because it does X, Y, and Z. I know just from speaking with him, he knows what he's talking about. So I'm not going to give him the 3rd degree to make sure he can prove he can use this proficiently. Um, that being said, we have other folks that are just the opposite. I want this, I want that, I want the other. And then, okay, can you type? Well, not yet, but I'm going to learn. Well, we got to start there first. So one of the things we actually engaged or started enacted a few years ago was what we call our RI bundles, where they work with a rehab instructor through DRS. And it's just a laptop with either Fusion, JAWS, or Zoom Text. Fusion is a combination of JAWS and Zoom Text, just so you know. So that's Zoom Text for low vision, blinds for or JAWS is for blind people, is the best way to sum that up. And Fusion's a mix of both. So that's really helpful for people where the prognosis is they're going to lose their vision, but they still have usable vision. We want to start sort of gearing them towards the screen reading aspect. So that can be sent as a bundle so that they can then learn. We also use typing instruction programs. There's one called Typability that we use a great deal, and then also Talking Typer we use less so. But they're typing instruction programs for the blind. And then there's several places in the Chicago area where people can go to training. Where it gets difficult is south of Chicago. So you either have to make a plan to go up to Chicago for a few weeks, which not everybody can do, but we do have a trainer on staff. So we do have a JAWS trainer that can work with people. We can offer up to 10 hours of training, depending on need, on any of these products. So that is probably the question that Katie mentioned earlier, the devices, staying up with them, making sure it's the newest, and you can get support for them, and then also training on equipment. We're growing by leaps and bounds, but we still don't have like a full training staff. And training, if anybody's familiar with screen readers, just imagine using a computer. In fact, we used to do this when I first came up. My boss, we'd have to take a test where you'd have to use JAWS and turn the screens off and then use your computer. So relying solely on your hearing to navigate a computer. And then keep in mind, as a sighted person, I'm very mouse dependent. Well, a mouse doesn't really do you much good when you're blind. So everything's a keyboard command. So it is a very, I mean, the best typists, best keyboardists I know are blind people because they've got to use not only that QWERTY piece, but the FRO and the function key and the JAWS key and the arrows and the numpad. Like they know the functionality of all these devices. So that's a challenge. We're getting better with it. We have a great trainer by the name of Rachel Schroeder on staff. She's blind herself. Users are the best teachers frequently. Those are the kinds of things. If you're not using it regularly, I've been doing this a long time, but if I can tell you the basics of JAWS, but if it got into how to use it in specific applications, I'm going to be looking at my cheat sheets because I certainly don't have everything memorized. So those are some of our challenges. But on the VR side, again, um, the level 2s are where we're looking at computer access and really a variety of other equipment. So CCTVs, recording devices, maybe for the classroom. Drag, naturally speaking, it is a big one for speech rec. A lot of apps. We're doing a ton of apps now for either iOS or Android. Although I will say, generally speaking, from an AT standpoint, we prefer iOS. Android's catching up and they're getting better, but even the built-ins are better on iOS and their applications are stronger and more well supported. Just you may have already known that, but just a little tidbit. If you do have somebody in your life that needs, AT, I'd recommend iOS unless they're already established Android users. Same with on the PC side, it's a Windows world. Macs won't even run JAWS. Macs won't run Dragon. Macs won't run Zoom Text. They have good built-ins, they really do. And so if we come across a student or individual who's a established Mac user, been using the voiceover control or the built-in speech rec, and that's what they want, they're comfortable with, we're fine with that. But if not an established device, we're going to definitely point them to Windows. And depending on need, a lot of times even Mac users, I'll say, hey, it would really benefit you to at least get a general idea of how to use a Windows device. Because, even though more and more, schools went to Chromebooks years ago, which there's pros and cons to that. I get the reason for it, the cheapness, the easy use of G Suite. But once you get out of high school, nobody's really using Chromebooks anymore. So it's kind of important to know those basic Windows commands. And for AT users, I mean, unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Like, a guy like me, I could, for years get by with sort of just clomping around my computer and figuring it out. But when I'm using AT, it's always going to take extra time anyway. So the expertise level really has to be there to use it well. Um, we'd always tell we're working with blinds where I say, hey, whatever work you're doing, whatever that, sighted student needs, if they need 2 hours to do something, you're probably going to need four. If they need four, you're probably going to need eight. That was just kind of a general rule of thumb. So, um, those are the things we look at all the time. The other piece, and I do want to mention this really quickly, there's something called the Community College Initiative that allowed students with DRS again, as long as they were with DRS, it didn't matter what their financial status, they qualified for a laptop if they're going to a community college. That recently changed. That's any university student. So any student, as long as they have a case with DRS, qualifies for a free laptop. It's what we call non-AT laptop. There's no AT added. You just get a laptop. Um, Sometimes I've talked to these students and they're like, well, I can benefit from text to speech or something like that. I can't provide it for them, but I can still tell them about something like Read and Write for Google or, Snap and Read or Glean or some of these Kurzweil, some of these other note taking and text to speech literacy suites. So those are kind of the three categories we operate in within DRS. And again, they can establish a case at 14, going up to whatever, as long as, I did an evaluation for a woman in Champaign who was 83, and she was proficient English and Spanish speaker and was teaching ESL classes from home. So we just needed to make sure we had the make sure she had some vision issues. So we had a laptop with Zoom text, we got our CCTV. We do also we did a height adjustable desk and an office chair for her. That's the only place we can justify furniture, for lack of a better word. And it has to be height adjustable because that's considered kind of ergonomic, and frankly, it's not healthy for people to sit at desks or stand for too long, right? So we're supposed to vary. Um, and a good office chair with ergonomic design is important for all of us to save our backs and legs and whatnot. So we can justify those. We can't do like a standard desk or, just a kitchen chair or something like that. So we don't do furniture. And the other piece that smart home offers, and we don't advertise this just because similar to, I don't know if phones came up, it could be a nightmare just in terms of we don't want to be known as the people who provide free internet. That being said, obviously to use smart home technology, you need internet. There's a few things, there's still infrared items out there that you can use. I mean, I'm not saying it's not doable at all, but generally you're going to need internet. So some people in Southern Illinois, some more rural counties, or they can't afford internet. We do have some of those folks up in Chicago area. We will provide 1 year's worth of internet. And ICC will do that too. So that was the program we do with aging. So we will provide internet only if necessary. We'll do the first year, and then if justification can be made for why that person couldn't continue to pay for it themselves, we'll do a second year, but we'll do it a year by year basis. So the one thing we can't do is auto renewal. We can't do recurring costs. So unfortunately, as you guys know, just about everything's subscription based anymore. Microsoft's driving me nuts because they want everybody to have an account with 365. I liked it back in the days when we just put a disk in external and loaded it up, and you could do it on two more machines, and that was it. And now you got to have an account, this, that, and the other. We do still provide an office suite though on all of our laptops that go out on the VR side of things. So just so you know, and Adobe, and we put a Zoom link on there and our warranty information. So we make sure that these machines come out of the box ready to rock and roll. So, but we will provide internet. We don't like to advertise it because we don't want everybody just saying, "Hey, IATP has free internet." That's not necessarily the case. Only if you can demonstrate a need. So, and I'm actually working. I just submitted a request to DRS for them to possibly provide smartphones for customers. It's something that the state never allowed. I've never quite understood the reasoning, but I've had enough customers here lately. There's a really cool technology. Meta glasses have been big. We did get our hands on some. We are recommending those when appropriate. Another set of smart glasses that I just recommended was for a customer I have who's deaf, and it does closed captioning in the lens in real time. Now it pairs with a phone, but it hears it. I've tested it, and as long as you're doing one to one and there's not multiple people talking, it does a really good job of literally putting it up in your lens. Um, and it actually, since it's connected to your phone, like if you get a text or something, it'll pop in there too. He's a custodian over at the state capitol, and he frequently needs his hands to work. And his boss will be telling him something, and he's a pretty good lip reader, but he struggles with it. And so this is really going to allow him to be able to get that closed captioning in real time for work. Unfortunately, his Android phone, as soon as I saw it, I thought, "Oh goodness, it's like a 7 or an 8," and it's been through it's been through some things. Well, it's not new enough to run the app that's required to use with these glasses. So I thought now's as good a time as any. So I have a request and to not only get him approved for a phone, but see if we can start doing that for other customers. And again, if we do get approval, it's not something I would advertise. We're not going to assess for like, "Hey, you got an old phone, let's get you a newer one." But if it's related to AT, I feel like it can be justified. So if you're interested in hearing where that goes, please get a hold of me because I'm waiting to hear back myself. So we shall see.
We do have another
Um,
question in the Q&A. If an agency has accessibility equipment to donate, do you have a way to pick it up?
we do. We do. So we have reuse drivers that go all over the state to pick things up and drop them off. So we will generally take, at one time we took just about everything. Because storage and space is such a premium, we can't, I would say give us a call and make sure we can get it. Like, if it can't be useful for somebody, we probably won't get it, or if it's too old or outdated. But yeah, if you have perfectly good DME equipment just sitting somewhere, well, remember I mentioned even if it's somebody from another program, and let's say I'm in the area, I'd run by and get it. So we do that all the time for each other. So yeah, give us a call and just well, if we can get it and it's equipment that we want to, it's beneficial to our program, 100%. So yeah. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. Great question, because I meant to mention it. You always get done, and I know I'm going to forget to tell you guys some things. But hey, that's why maybe you'll have me again sometime. Huh? Any other questions, comments, concerns? And I apologize. My voice is starting to go, and I'm working on a cold here, so I know my voice is kind of annoying right now. Uh,
I think 45 minutes into speaking, everybody's voice gets really dry.
yeah, it's a good point. That's a good point, Tonya. Um, Yeah, I mean, honestly, if there's no more questions or comments or anything that you guys would like to, I mean, were most of you even aware of our existence? I'm gonna go ahead and
If you
stop
guys
my
want to,
share.
you guys can raise your hand if you want to say, yes, I knew of your existence.
Okay. So and again, I never know, like a lot of this might have been repeated and like, yeah, I already knew that. Thanks, buddy. But hopefully, if nothing else, it's just a reminder of who and what we are. Has anybody been to, I think there's Q&A,
We had
visited?
one that said, yeah,
Oh yeah, Joanne Johnson. You visited pre-COVID. So, you know what, Joanne? You probably went to our Spring Street site. We've since moved, so we're now at our larger location over on North Walnut. So, I invite you personally to come on in and take a look if you get time. I even tell people that from out of town, um, if if you want to come learn all about Lincoln and then maybe drop by and visit us, you can learn more about Lincoln here than you probably ever thought you needed to. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we visited last year, I think, and the way that we kind of were able to set that up was because we needed a hybrid meeting that was specifically geared towards people with disabilities, and IATP has really good hybrid capacity. So it was one of our preferred locations that we went. So while we had, I think that we had two meetings because I wasn't at one, I was at the other one,
okay,
and
yeah,
both of them had a tour. And that was kind of the way that we were able to justify it is that we had hybrid meetings. And this space
yeah.
really is, as somebody who has to do a lot of hybrid meetings, it was a dream. It was a dream to work there.
Glad to
Um,
hear. I agree. It's an old
yeah,
hospital. It was the old Vibra hospital. When we first came, I was like, man, how's this gonna work? But it's been pretty phenomenal.
yeah.
So yeah,
It
we
works
have a
for
lot of
the
folks
kitchen.
that
Yeah.
use our yeah, we have a lot of folks that use our conference room. And that's kind of our thing. It's like, oh, if you're here using our conference room, let us take you around real quick, show you. So whether you want it or not, you may get a little tour. But yeah, we really want people to visit. We want to collaborate. We want to work with other agencies. There's so many great non-for-profits all over the state, and we've worked with a ton of them, including the SILs around the state. And I really didn't hit on home services too much because that's part of what I oversee as well. And that's very similar. We get a referral from the state, and these are people that are in their home but need generally some significant changes to be made. So we do recommend a lot of ramps, a lot of bathroom modifications. We don't do the work or provide the service in this case, which is unfortunate, only because, especially again in Southern Illinois, Central Illinois, finding contractors that can do the work has been difficult. Unfortunately, years ago, and the state's actually gotten better, but the reputation got so bad that a lot of these contractors wouldn't get paid for months and months at a time. And it's real easy. The cap on home services is still 25K. And if you do a home mod, you do the bathroom and the ramp, you're going to do 25K pretty quick. Um, the problem is a contractor could come in and do the work, but then the state doesn't pay them for 9 months. Well, unless you're a giant company that can eat 25 until you get paid, most people that are just kind of out working, I know I certainly couldn't front you $25,000 worth of equipment and service. So a lot of people just kind of wrote off the state and quit even in dealing with them. So even now that they are paying vendors, in a timely fashion for the most part, from what I've heard, knock on wood, that continues. Finding reliable contractors to do the work is frustrating because we frequently we go in, hey, they need a ramp, they need this, they need that. We write the report, we submit it to the counselor. We have engineers that actually, will give measurements and all that other good stuff. We get a call a year and a half later from the customer like, hey, when's this going to happen? And unfortunately, we don't have the capacity or the wherewithal to really be able to do anything about that other than make calls. So if anybody knows anybody who's a contractor, reliable, is interesting to do work, things like ramps and whatnot, it might be worth giving us a call or DRS and just putting them on the radar. And that's the other part with the state. They got to make sure they're registered with the state, and you got to get your tax ID numbers and all those things registered. And I think a lot of people just don't want to be bothered with all that. So, but the home services program and it's where our smart home has kind of been able to do some of those things through another program that customers need because we try to let them know that ultimately a cost up front is going to be save you far more money in the long run if someone can age in place in their own home rather than put them in an assisted living or a nursing home, which the cost comparative is kind of ridiculous when you look at it. It's like, why not just put a little money here now rather than doing a lot of money later because we don't have an appropriate price for them to live. So, but I realize I'm probably preaching to the choir on that, but yeah, one day we'll get that changed, maybe.
I see
But
Donna. Thank you very much for Donna has put in the Q&A that she will be sharing that information with her staff. We really
yeah,
appreciate that. We hate
absolutely.
well-kept secrets.
Yeah, there you go. You know what? I love that you said that because that's our favorite go-to phrase is we feel like the best kept secret in Illinois. But we also know that just about there's so many other agencies like that. And what I was going to mention with the home services program, so I don't know if you guys are aware, and I just want to put this out there. INSIL, there's SILs all over, but INSIL, the state organization, they got funding, gosh, probably about 6 months ago to do home mods. They have a higher cap. They don't have a DONS, so like that's determination of need that home services puts a person through. Um, so the idea is that they could get, they had the money to get things evaluated and the work done very quickly. So if you know of people that need that don't have home services, put them in touch with their local SIL, and hopefully um, if they need this service, they can get it. I don't know how well it's being implemented yet. I do know of it. Hopefully it's going well. They kind of picked our brains as to how to run it, and we gave them all the information we had. So hopefully it's going well. I couldn't really tell you for sure, but again, it's a secret. A lot of people don't even know about it. So just going to put that out there. Contact your local SIL or InSIL to find out more details.
All right. I think in the interest of time, we could maybe take one more question and then we got to wrap up.
Sounds good.
I'm not seeing any questions.
That's okay. That's absolutely okay.
Well, once again, this will be available on the Illinois Workforce Academy. I've got that link in the chat. It's not a whole lot of stuff in the chat there, so I'm not going to repost it. But thank you so much, Mark, for being here. We
Thank
really,
you.
really appreciated having you. And IATP really is an incredible program. I love the phrase "we sell nothing." I think that very much encapsulates
Yeah.
the vibe that you get when you go there. And we highly encourage people to visit. If you are interested in more of these talks that are to do more with accessibility, our next one in this series is going to be on the Job Accommodation Network, or JAN, that'll be presented by Lori Kittner from DRS. So just wanted to plug that real quick. Mark, are there any last comments that you want to make before we log off?
No, just thank you all so much for sitting for that long and paying attention to me. And very grateful for the opportunity, Antonio. And seriously, you have my information on there. You have our website. Do not hesitate to reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
All right, bye-bye.